So for the past week or so, I've been working on cosplay for the character Gogo Tomago from Big Hero 6.
So the first thing I worked on was her helmet.
And I'm still in the middle of it. What I did first was have cardboard. I followed a tutorial that I found on YouTube. I'll put an annotation here and I'll put a link in the description. Basically, I just made it out of cardboard. That tutorial, I found it was pretty good, but I wanted my finished product to look smoother than his did. So what I've been doing is putting paper mache on it. So it's more solid now, and you can see the details here, but you'll be able to see them more once I paint it. So I have it, some of this is still drying right now, just in some select spots that need a little bit more. And once that's done, I'm going to sand it all down, and I'm going to paint it all, and then this will be done after I figure out how to do the screen. I have a few ideas for the visor. Like in the tutorial, he suggests either pop bottles or packing tape. I'm going to try both of those, but I also have a few other ideas, and if they work, then I will elaborate on them on my Tumblr. This is actually one problem I had with this was it fit perfectly earlier, but after a couple layers of paper mache, it's kind of difficult to get on. So when I'm sanding it down, I have to expand my hole. So that it doesn't break when I take it on and off. The second thing I worked on was her arm,
which, as you can see, is armored all the way up. I have not done her shoulder pads yet, but I have worked on the rest of it.
I made patterns for each part. This was my pattern for her hand. So what I did was basically, I'm having it wrap around and connect, I'm having it wrap around and connect on my palm, and these are just so that it follows the shape of my hand.
Because as you can see, her gloves are very form-fitting to her hand, despite being plastic, because she's a cartoon and it was made by a 3D printer.
I don't actually know what happened to the model that I had for her hand. I'm gonna have to remake it, but that's no big deal. It was actually fairly easy. And then I did her lower arm, I think they're called greaves. So this was my pattern for that, and it just wraps around like that. And this was for the upper arm. I have done one of each in white. These were my test because I had leftover craft foam. That's another thing, I'm making the whole thing out of craft foam because it's cheap. So I'll show you what it looks like on. So I read a couple of tutorials for this. Some cardboard, some craft foam, and I combined the two. I haven't finished these yet, obviously. There's still some work to be done, besides painting. But what I did basically was I made a tube that was the length of the part that I needed to cover. And then for this one, for this, I just put it. I put it on and marked out where I needed to cut in order to be able to bend my arm with it on without it bending. And then I basically did the same thing for here, only I also had to test my shoulder. And then I had to follow how Gogo has it.
Which is actually a fairly simple design. She has yellow underneath connecting the two parts as well, but I have not figured out a way to do that, so I'm just gonna wear a yellow shirt.
Right now I'm working on my breastplate, which I'm following. I followed this tutorial on craft foam, put an annotation there, and a link in the description as well. I'll put a link to all the tutorials that I read in the description, because all of them were useful. They were all very good tutorials, and I just kind of pick and chose what I was doing from each of them. For the tutorial, the person in the tutorial had a piece of craft foam that was large enough that she could just put her whole piece of armor on it, but my armor didn't fit on my craft foam, so I cut it up into sections. That's the back. This was the front. Another thing was that she didn't have anything that went over the arms, so I had to cut this part apart so that I could lay it down flat, and then I glued it together so that it would go back together in the curve shape of my body. And, you know, she covers boobs fairly well in that tutorial, so I will skip that. I will say, though, if you have a larger chest size, always overcompensate for how big they are when you are cutting it out, because whatever you draw will likely not be quite accurate just because of how the plastic wrap and tape form to your body. I had to expand my holes, and I'm going to make the chest, the boob plate, bigger. This is what I have so far. I haven't put the boobs in it. Don't know how it will fit with this shirt. I have found that what bra you are wearing, like she says in the tutorial, is very important, because I tried to see how this fit while I wasn't wearing a bra, and it just did not at all. So make sure that you're wearing the right bra. Correct bra. It's still a little bit too small, but I am planning on having it open in the back so that I can actually get in and out of it. And then I will have a... I'm gonna test having something to cover that to hide the seam, but that might make it more obvious, so I might not do that. So you can see the seams where I had to cut it. This was as long as my craft foam sheet was, so I had to cut it off there and just add this piece in after. And then there was the back, but the seams are actually less noticeable than I feared they would be, and after I go over it a few times with paint, I think that it should all but disappear. I guess we'll see. But that's what I have so far for my cosplay, and I will be posting a more detailed description of how to do each part, including the details, once I'm done. I'm taking pictures along the way, so unfortunately it will be mostly pictures, not video. Oh, and this is another thing, is I found that the bottom of this guy doesn't quite match up on the two sides. So be careful with how you cut. I can fix that because I can just add a piece on here and then cut this down, and I don't care if there's seams that you see because I'm not that picky. But if you are, I can totally understand it because I get picky with a lot of my cosplays. I'm just not being with this one. But if you are, then just be extra careful how you cut. Maybe overcompensate on how long you are, like how tall you are, so that you can just cut it down to your size, which I should have done, but I didn't. So yeah, that's it for today. I plan to do some more detailed cosplay tutorials, so if you liked this, then let me know in the comments. If you follow me on Tumblr, you've probably seen some of the other cosplays I've done. If you're curious about any of those, let me know and I'll talk about them.